So BA meets with the 49ers yesterday, and really not a lot has come out as far as how that meeting went. But we do have a hint. Brandon Aiyuk went and found a post on Instagram that referred to the 49ers potentially looking to trade him to the Commanders during the draft. And BA responded to that saying, hey, but I thought the 49ers weren't trying to trade me, though. So, did the meeting go well? I would say probably not. They're in a very similar spot. You know, if you have a meeting and the day after, players taking to Instagram to take some more pop shots, it means things probably didn't go so great. So where do we go from here? How much of it is the 49ers' fault? How much of it is Brandon Aiyuk's fault? Well, I think both things can be true. I think that what Brandon Aiyuk is asking for can be completely fair. Based off the market, I don't think he's out of line unless he's asking for Justin Jefferson money, which I highly doubt that's the case. I think BA's smart. I think his agent's probably pretty smart. And I think that most likely they know what their worth would be on the open market, and that's what they're asking for. Now, the 49ers also know exactly what he's probably worth on the open market. That being said, that doesn't mean that they have to be willing to pay that. They have multiple decisions at hand. Do they want him to play on the fifth-year option, try to make one last run at the Super Bowl, franchise tag him and trade him next year? Or if he doesn't play as well, bring him back, but at a cheaper rate, more of a team-friendly deal? That's a possibility. Or do they just want to sign him long-term and want him at a completely different price than what the market says? All of those things can be true. The 49ers can be right here, and so can Brandon Aiyuk. It's not this, then that, or this or that. Both can be absolutely right here. And I believe that's probably the case. But here's the thing. Once Brandon Aiyuk decides to go for the money, Mike Silver talked about this during the offseason, that if Brandon Aiyuk were to sign, then it becomes Hunger Games between Deebo Samuel and Brandon Aiyuk. And he said, in fact, if Brandon Aiyuk didn't sign, next year would become the Hunger Games. If he does sign, then pretty much that means that Deebo Samuel is gone. Well, I do find it interesting that Deebo Samuel this offseason really is started to take a leadership role. You notice that he's working out with Ricky Pearsall early in the offseason. And a lot of people thought that was interesting. Like, hey, this is a guy who's potentially here to replace you, yet you're working out with him. Like, wow, what a leader. And then new pictures have surfaced with him working out with Jacob Cowing. Well, if you want to remain with the 49ers and you want to continue to cash in with that big payday that you signed just a couple years ago, maybe taking a leadership role, if it's quote unquote Hunger Games, this is your way of saying, hey, I'm worth it. I want to stay. BA, on the other hand, asking for $30 million or whatever he's asking for, he knows that the moment he signs a deal, that most likely means that Deebo's gone. So that's his Hunger Game side of things. Like, listen, I love you, Deebo, but if I get paid, I've got to do what's right for me. And if that means you got to go, then you got to go. So you've got these players who are presumably friends, but they're jockeying for position on the same team. This is why it also is hard for teams to make it back to a Super Bowl after losing a Super Bowl. We talk about the Super Bowl hangover. What does that mean? What does that actually look like? Well, this is what it looks like. You've got two players who have been friends, probably are still going to remain friends, but they're pitted against each other, not because the 49ers are doing something wrong or the players are even doing something wrong, but essentially they both want to be on this team. They both want to get paid what they deserve. They both want to be number one guys, but there's only room for one on this ship going forward. So now they're both jockeying for position against each other because that's what they have to do. They've got to do what's right for them first. This is how teams that lose the Super Bowl kind of lose that edge or lose that fire, right? So for me, you're starting to see it all play out. Here's another thing I want to talk about. The only thing that I would say that the 49ers are doing wrong here is they want their cake and they want to eat it too. And here's what I mean by that. Do you remember when Jimmy Garoppolo was being shot by the 49ers a couple off seasons ago and they couldn't trade him? So they ended up re-signing him and bringing him back. Reportedly, they were looking for 2 second-round picks. Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't worth anything near that. Anybody with half a brain knew that. Yet the 49ers were asking for this astronomical return for a guy that they told the whole world they didn't want back. Well, you're kind of doing the same thing here, where you are asking probably for multiple firsts, or for the future, multiple firsts, or in this last year's draft, certainly a first, maybe a player as well. But you also don't want to pay BA. You can't not want to pay BA. You're basically telling the world, hey, we don't think he's worth whatever you think he's worth. At least not to us, he's not worth it. So we don't want to pay him, but we also want to rake you over the coals for something in return. You don't get both. You can't tell the football world one thing and then expect something in return. They're not dumb. These organizations, for the most part, are ran by really smart people as well. They know exactly what they're looking at. They know what they're doing. They know what BA's worth. So they know if they trade for BA, they're going to have to pay him X amount and then also give up a first-round pick or whatever it is that you're looking for, plus a player. I don't know. The 49ers, you got to decide. You're either okay with him playing on this fifth-year option, playing it out and seeing where it goes from here, which I'm sure they are. But ultimately, if you want BA around and you want him happy and you're trying to make a Super Bowl run, you got to pay him. And if you're not willing to pay him, then you do have to trade him, but you're going to have to acquiesce a little bit to what other teams think he is worth, especially because they got to pay him big time money that you weren't willing to do it. So you want this team to pay big time money that you're not willing to pay, plus give up an extra pick. That doesn't make a lot of sense. You can't have it both ways here, 49ers. You cannot have it both ways. Last thing I want to talk about is Brandon Aiyuk's agent. Brandon Aiyuk's agent, we know, very good friends with John Lynch, looks at John Lynch as a mentor. Always felt like that was a little bit fishy. But a lot of people are mad that Brandon Aiyuk keeps taking to social media. But they were also the same people who were very happy when his agent took to social media and were dunking on random accounts for false reports. Where's his agent now on these false reports? Well, he can't really say they're false reports because they're his client coming out directly and barking back on Instagram or TikTok or through ESPN, Ryan Clark, what have you. You can't really refute this because this is your client. So, at the same token, asking his agent to get his client under control is a wild thing to say because the agent was clapping back at people on social media in the same exact way. It's not going to happen. BA hires the agent. He goes about his business however he wants. This is the way it's going to be. So, knowing that BA felt like it was personal, knowing he requested a meeting, now knowing that most likely that meeting didn't go great because he's back on social media already chirping back, what do you think's going to happen if they don't pay Brandon Aiyuk? What does that look like? You think BA is just going to be fine and play all the games and do the blocking and all the things the 49ers want? I would say BA's kind of already told us exactly what he's willing to do and not willing to do. I don't think you're going to get the same BA who's as hungry when the ball's not coming his way. And what kind of problems does that cause for a team trying to win a Super Bowl? 49ers are in an interesting situation. Yes, on the surface, the 49ers hold the leverage. They can do the fifth-year option. They can franchise tag him. They can keep him for 3 more years if they really want, right? But BA has leverage in the fact that he doesn't have to play all the games. He doesn't have to play as hard as he did last year when he's not getting the ball, and he still can find an avenue to get paid. That doesn't help a team that is trying to win a Super Bowl this year. All of this is wrong. Hopefully it gets resolved soon. I'm still under the thought that BA does sign that agreement, that they do come to a deal and that he's there week 1. I hope that is the case. But if it is not the case, we kind of know the direction that BA is going. And clearly, BA is more than willing to play some hardball of his own.